So let's talk about Colorado. Deep in the heart of the state, there's this geological feature that's so straight, so valuable, and frankly, so weird that it's had scientists completely stumped for over 100 years. It's an incredible story. We're talking about a ghost plate, billions in treasure, and a volcanic secret that's actually still playing out today. Okay, so just picture this in your mind. A line stretching for 500 kilometers, and it's absolutely packed with some of the most valuable mineral deposits on the entire planet. Now, this isn't some fantasy treasure map. This is a real thing, literally etched into the landscape. And here's what makes it so mind-bending. This line slices with almost unnatural precision, just northeast to southwest, right across the jagged, chaotic grain of the Rocky Mountains. Nature doesn't usually draw in straight lines. This thing just doesn't look like it belongs there. So that's the big question, right? That's what we're digging into here. Why in the world does this bizarre, unbelievably rich line even exist? What kind of powerful forces could create something like this? And what does it tell us about the ground, right beneath our feet? All right, so this feature has an official name. It's the Colorado Mineral Belt. And trust me, it's one of geology's great enigmas. What's wild is that you probably know parts of this belt without even realizing it. I mean, famous spots like Pikes Peak, the huge San Juan volcanic field, and those legendary mining districts of Leadville and Climax, they're not just random dots on a map. No, they are all like beads strung along this one single mysterious geologic thread. And look, this isn't some new puzzle we just stumbled on. As you can see from this quote by geologists Tweedo and Sims, way back in 1963, scientists were already scratching their heads over this. It just cuts across every other geological feature, like it's playing by a completely different set of rules. Now, for decades, there was a leading theory. And it made a lot of sense, but it left a massive question completely unanswered. So the initial thought was pretty logical. The idea was that this belt was just following these ancient zones of weakness deep in the continent's foundation, cracks or shear zones that formed more than 1 billion years ago. It's simple, right? Rising magma is going to take the path of least resistance, following this pre-existing plumbing up to the surface. But here's a massive hole in that theory. Sure, those ancient cracks could explain the path the magma took, but it doesn't explain its origin. Why was there this enormous furnace of molten rock deep below this specific line? And why was it active for tens of millions of years? The old theory explained the where, but it totally missed the crucial why. To find the real answer, scientists had to look way deeper, below the continent itself, to a tectonic plate that, get this, isn't even there anymore. Okay, so for this to make sense, we got to talk about subduction real quick. Normally, an oceanic plate dives pretty steeply under a continent. It melts, and you get coastal volcanoes, like in the Andes. But sometimes, as you see on the right, the plate slides in almost horizontally for hundreds of kilometers. That's called flat slab subduction. The plate doesn't melt, so it creates what's called a magma gap, no coastal volcanoes. But what it does do is transfer all that stress way inland, building mountains like the Rockies. And this is exactly what an ancient, long-lost plate called the Farallon Plate was doing under North America millions of years ago. And this magma gap, it was absolutely immense. We're talking a staggering 1,200 kilometers wide. It covered this huge swath of the American West. An area that, by all rights, should have been volcanically active was just eerily quiet. And it was all because this ghost plate was down there, smothering it from below. So, if the flat plate was basically putting a lid on all the magma, how on earth did the mineral belt get there? Well, the answer is pretty dramatic. The plate itself failed, catastrophically. Okay, here's how the modern theory, the leaky boundary hypothesis, works. So as this flat Farallon plate slid horizontally, it crashed into the deep, thick, basically unmovable roots of the North American continent, what geologists call a craton. The plate was forced to bend and warp around this solid block, which created incredible stress. And eventually, pop. The stress was just too much. The plate ripped open, creating this 500-kilometer-long tear. And that tear became a leak, a direct channel for superheated material from the deep mantle to punch right through the plate and into the crust above it. That is the engine of the Colorado mineral belt. And this deep earth plumbing system, it didn't just create volcanoes. Oh, no. It created almost unimaginable wealth. You see, the magma flowing up through this leak wasn't just a one-time event. As the tectonic forces shifted over millions of years, the actual nature of the magma and the minerals it was carrying changed too. So during the big mountain building period, you get one set of intrusions. Then later, as the crust started to stretch, the chemistry changed just right to produce the world-class silver and gold at Leadville. And then even later, you get the massive molybdenum deposits at the climax mine. Just how rich are we talking? Well, the Leadville district alone has produced ore valued at over $5.4 billion. And get this, that's using 1989 prices. The amount of wealth that came out of this one geologic leak is it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. And this really shows you how incredibly complex the whole process was. It helps to think of the magma as having different flavors that erupted at different times. Each type brought its own unique cocktail of elements up to the surface. And depending on that specific recipe, whether it was richer in some things or others, it created all these different kinds of mineral treasures all along the belt. So that story of the Farallon Plate Terrig, it's a fantastic explanation for the past. But what it implies about the present and, the future is where things get really fascinating. Because here's the thing. The deep forces that ripped that ghost plate apart millions of years ago, they haven't just disappeared. The tear might have healed up, but that immense heat source deep below it is still cranking. That plumbing system, it's still there. In fact, Colorado's last volcanic eruption was in geologic time, basically yesterday, just 4,200 years ago. And where did it happen? At the Dotsero Volcanic Center, which is located directly on top of the Colorado mineral belt. This is the smoking gun, the proof that the deep heat source that created this line of treasure is still very much active. Which leaves us with one final, kind of tantalizing question. The tear in a tectonic plate that's been gone for eons gave Colorado its majestic mountains and its billions in mineral wealth. So, with those exact same deep forces still at play today, what else is being cooked up right now, deep in the crust beneath the Rockies?